Let me tell you a brutal truth that the legacy auto industry has been desperately trying to hide from you for the last 10 years. The electric vehicle revolution has been a complete and utter failure for the working class. When the first electric cars rolled off the assembly lines, we were sold a gorgeous fantasy. We were promised freedom from tailpipe emissions, freedom from the chokehold of global oil prices, and the ability to commute using clean energy. But the ticket to enter that promised land was locked behind an absolutely extortionate paywall. Do you know what the average price of a new pickup truck in the United States is right now? It is hovering right around $66,000. The electric vehicle was supposed to save us, but instead, it became a massive symbol of class division. It morphed into a flashy tech toy parked neatly in the temperature-controlled garages of the upper middle class. Meanwhile, everyday people are entirely left behind. I am talking about the folks who wake up before the sun rises. The families who need a rugged, reliable vehicle to drop the kids at school, haul tools to the job site, and maybe hit a state park on the weekend. They are trapped between two miserable financial choices. You either keep paying for fossil fuels that bleed your wallet dry at the pump, or you take on a crushing 7-year auto loan that cripples your family budget for a decade. But the financial pain does not stop at the sticker price. I know exactly what you are thinking because we have all been there. You have completely lost your patience with empty corporate promises. Have you ever walked into a car dealership holding on to the hope of buying that heavily advertised, affordable electric vehicle you saw on television? You walk the lot, only to find out the single model they actually have in stock is marked up $20,000 over the manufacturer's suggested retail price. How does it feel when the finance manager corners you into buying an invisible $800 paint protection package that is literally just a basic car wash? Or a ridiculous $800 bug shield that the dealer barely bolted on? This is not an isolated incident. The predatory practice of the dealership markup has completely destroyed consumer trust. Sometimes they slap $10,000 extra on the hood just because they can. This creates a massive psychological barrier for buyers. It forces us to assume that any promise of a genuinely affordable electric vehicle is just a slick marketing stunt that will never survive the reality of the sales floor. And then, exploiting this desperate hunger for affordable cars, a few startup companies jumped into the ring claiming they were going to save you. They roll out models like the so-called Slate, backed by wealthy investors, boasting an incredibly tempting starting price of $24,950. You hear that number? And suddenly, a little spark of hope ignites. But hold on a second. What is the actual hidden cost of that supposedly cheap price tag? The cost is the complete and total sacrifice of the minimum modern comforts that define a 21st century driving experience. For $24,950, what you are actually buying is an empty box. I mean that literally. The car has no infotainment system, no stereo to play your favorite music, and you literally have to use mechanical hand cranks to roll down the windows. You want to use a navigation map? Buy a plastic phone mount and use your own data plan. You want a decent paint job? Forget about it. The vehicle leaves the factory wrapped in dull, unpainted gray polypropylene plastic panels. You are forced to spend extra money on vinyl decals just to make the thing look slightly less like a giant, cheap plastic toy. It only comes with 2 seats. If you want to fit your family and expand it to 5 seats, you have to pay out of pocket to upgrade the rear canopy to turn it into a sport utility vehicle. With a small 63 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery that barely gets you 205 miles of range, you are essentially forced to become a backyard mechanic. You have to assemble your own car parts just to make the vehicle functional. They put you in an insulting, impossible situation. You either bankrupt yourself to buy a real electric vehicle, or you pay them to turn you into a miserable driver sitting in a stripped-down, punishing plastic penalty box on 4 wheels. This world does not need another 6-figure luxury electric yacht, and it absolutely does not need a cheap electric car that spits on the core comforts of the driver. What this market desperately needs is a violent, structural revolution. And today, that revolution finally has a name. Welcome to the 2027 Ford Fathom. Before we dive into battery chemistry or dry technical specifications, we need to talk about the psychology of naming. Why didn't Ford just slap a random string of numbers and letters on this tailgate? Why name it the Fathom? In ancient maritime language, the word fathom was used to measure the span of outstretched human arms, which is about 6 feet. It was a measurement of the deep ocean, but it also symbolized an embrace. Over the centuries, the word evolved to mean something much more profound. To fathom something means to deeply and completely understand the core truth of a problem or a person. That deep empathy is the literal DNA of this pickup truck. The Ford Fathom was not dreamed up in a sterile corporate laboratory by disconnected engineers who only care about 0 to 60 acceleration times. It was born from a ruthless understanding of your daily life, your financial anxiety, and your actual needs. The engineering team, including executives who spent hours talking directly to regular folks on internet forums, realized you need a pragmatic tool, not a compromised toy. Listen to me closely. The Fathom will launch with a genuinely shocking starting price of $28,350. Even when you add the mandatory $1,595 destination fee, you are looking at a total out-the-door base price of $29,945. This makes it the most accessible electric vehicle Ford has ever engineered. The chief executive officer of the company, Jim Farley, boldly called this new universal electric vehicle platform the Model T moment of the electric era. And he is right. When you adjust for historic inflation, this sub-$30,000 price point perfectly matches the disruptive economic impact of the original legendary Model T. They are trying to put the world on wheels all over again. But this time, those wheels produce 0 emissions. Now, let us look at what your $28,350 actually buys you, because they are not forcing you to live in a miserable, cramped tin can. First, while the overall exterior footprint of the Fathom matches the compact Ford Maverick for easy city parking, the interior cabin is an engineering magic trick. It comfortably seats 5 large adults. The actual passenger volume is larger than a Toyota RAV4, which is the best-selling family car in America. You get a highly functional rear truck bed, plus a massive, waterproof front trunk to lock away your valuables. Second, Ford completely refused to strip away the technology. Every single Fathom that rolls off the line comes standard with a massive high-definition touchscreen. You get a digital phone key and built-in wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But here's the real kicker. Ford integrated native Apple Maps directly into the brain of the vehicle. Because of this deep data integration, every single Fathom comes with all the hardware needed for Blue Cruise. That is their premium, hands-free highway driving technology, giving you a remarkably smooth, autonomous cruise from the on-ramp to your exit. Third, the Fathom is not just a way to get to work. It comes standard with bi-directional power capabilities. This transforms your vehicle into a massive rolling generator. You can literally light up an entire family campsite in the middle of the wilderness, or run heavy power tools on a construction site without needing a loud, gas-chugging portable generator. That is an unbelievable amount of utility for $28,350. Now, I know exactly what the skeptics are screaming at their screens right now. You are asking yourself, how can Ford possibly sell a vehicle with these specifications for $28,000 without bleeding cash? Won't the greedy dealerships just hoard the inventory, create fake scarcity, and slap a $10,000 markup on it anyway? Those are sharp, cynical, and completely justified questions. To answer them, I don't want you to trust a marketing brochure. I want you to step inside the greatest mechanical revolution in the 120-year history of the Ford Motor Company. This is where they are using brutal manufacturing science to protect your bank account. Look at the massive Louisville assembly plant in Kentucky. This is a sprawling facility covering nearly 3 million square feet that used to pump out traditional gas-powered cars. Instead of doing a lazy upgrade, Ford made a terrifyingly bold decision. They ripped out the entire old infrastructure, stripped the building down to its bare bones, and injected $2 billion to build a next-generation production facility. That $2 billion is part of a massive $5 billion war chest dedicated entirely to this new universal electric vehicle platform. This move secures 2,200 union jobs in Kentucky and links directly to their new battery plants in Michigan. Why spend $5 billion to build a cheap truck? Because the secret to the Fathom is not cheap materials. The secret is the complete and total eradication of wasted time and wasted motion on the factory floor. For over a century, cars have been built using a linear method. A metal skeleton slowly moves down a straight line, and workers swarm around it. They constantly bend over, twist their backs, and reach awkwardly through door frames to bolt thousands of tiny parts into a cramped cabin. It is agonizingly slow, deeply prone to human error, and wildly expensive. With the Fathom, Ford ripped up the rulebook and invented the assembly tree. Imagine the vehicle is no longer a single block moving down a line. Instead, it is built in 3 completely independent branches: the front clip, the rear clip, and a flat floor structure that houses the battery and the entire interior. These branches only come together at the very last second. For the front and rear sections, they are using massive aluminum uncasting technology. On a current Ford Maverick, they have to stamp, weld, and bolt together 146 separate pieces of metal. On the Fathom, those 146 parts have been replaced by exactly 2 giant single-piece castings. Eliminating 144 parts means eliminating hundreds of potential failure points, thousands of labor hours, and millions in tooling costs. But the real magic happens on the third branch, the lithium iron phosphate battery platform. Traditional electric cars treat the battery like a heavy backpack that gets shoved underneath the car at the end of the line. The Fathom actually uses the armored shell of the battery pack as the structural, load-bearing floor of the cabin. Because there is no roof in the way during assembly, workers can literally just walk right up, bolt down the seats, snap in the dashboard, and lay the carpet from any angle. The results of this mechanical witchcraft are staggering. This new process eliminates 84% of the ergonomically painful tasks that wreck workers' bodies. Because the architecture is so smart, the Fathom uses 4,000 fewer feet of copper wiring. It is 22 pounds lighter than their previous electric utility vehicles. And they did not stop at hardware. With a blanket of high-speed 5G internet covering the factory, they built software flash modules directly onto the moving line. Updating the car's computer used to take 10 minutes of dead, stationary waiting time. Now, the software downloads wirelessly while the truck is physically moving down the belt. When you add up the uncasting, the structural battery, and the wireless software loading, you get an absolute earthquake of an efficiency metric. The Fathom is built 40% faster than any gas-powered car Ford has ever made in that building. And right there is the silver bullet that kills the dealership markup. How can a sleazy sales manager create fake scarcity and demand a $10,000 premium when the factory is pumping out trucks 40% faster than before? They cannot hoard them because the assembly line is going to drown their lots in a tidal wave of inventory. This massive oversupply, born from ruthless engineering, is the ultimate shield protecting that $28,350 price tag. You have worked incredibly hard your entire life. You pay your taxes, you support your family, and you absolutely deserve to drive a modern, clean vehicle without destroying your financial future. You do not have to accept a plastic golf cart with crank windows, and you no longer have to fear the predatory finance office at your local dealership. Ford's manufacturing speed is your ultimate protection. The definition of a base model has been permanently rewritten. The order banks for the Fathom open in early 2027, and the first models will roll out of Kentucky by the first quarter. This is not just a new truck. This is the death of the overpriced electric luxury car and the end of the dealership markup scam.